So before we begin, let's look at some basic facts. Colin, what's 2 times 4?
8.
8. What's 3 times 8? Who can help her? 3 times 8, Victoria?
24.
24. Okay, this is, if you don't know your basic facts, then we're going to have to move on because we don't have time to wait for you to count through. You've got to be memorizing them. Otherwise, this is going to be a really rough chapter. Well, really, really rough rest of the year because we're going to be using basic facts every single chapter from here on out. Okay, now what if I do this? What do you think happens? Zari?
You just add a 0, you would just change, it would be basically the same thing, but you added a 0.
So 2 times 4, Zari?
Is 8.
How many zeros do we have in our problem?
1.
We're going to move it to the end. So 2 times 40 equals what, Zari?
80.
80. Well, let's follow this pattern here. Zari, 3 times 8 equals?
24.
How many zeros do we have in our problem?
1.
We move it to the end. So 3 times 80 is?
240.
240. What do you think happens here? I forgot I was picking sticks. Victoria, what do you think happens here?
We have the same number, but we add 2.
We don't add 2 zeros because remember, adding 2 zeros means plus 0. So if we did 2 times 4, we would get what? And if we added 2 zeros, well, 8 plus 0 is? Plus 0 is? So is that my answer? So we don't add 2 zeros. Remember, we don't say add 2 zeros. We can move or put 2 zeros at the end. So that means 2 times 400 is 800. Well, let's try the same thing here. 3 times 8 is? Louder.
24.
How many zeros do we have in our at the end of our numbers?
2.
2. Put in our comma. So 3 times 800 is?
2,400.
2,400. Well, let's try one more. Kingston, let's follow that same pattern. 2 times 4 is? Louder. Louder. Louder.
8.
8. How many zeros do we have at the end of our numbers?
3.
3. 1, 2. So we're going to put them at the end. 1, 2, 3. Put in our comma. 2 times 4,000 is?
8,000.
8,000. Let's try the same thing with 3 times 8,000. Take out the basic fact. 3 times 8 is?
24.
How many zeros do we have at the end of our factors?
3.
1, 2, 3. Put them at the end. 1, 2, 3. Put in our comma. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay. So 3 times 8,000 is?
24.
24,000. Now let's check. I'm going to check with a calculator because I want to get to our lesson. We have 2 times 40 equals 80. 3 times 80 equals 240. 2 times 400 equals 800. 3 times 800 equals 2,400. 3 times 4,000, 2 times 4,000 equals 8,000. 3 times 8,000 equals 24,000. So, by following that pattern, did we get the right answer to these problems? So do you think that this only works with these numbers, 2 and 4 and 3 and 8? No, it works with every basic fact. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So go ahead and open your math book to page 197. Do not work ahead. It will cause consequences and lost points on homework. You need to make sure that you are following along, because even if you think you know how to do it, if you're working ahead, you're not listening to what I'm saying, so that means you may miss out on some tips or tricks or important information that I may need to give. Right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the sentences under the title. Smith, loud and slow. Make sure that you're following along as Smith reads out loud.
A multiple of a number is the product of that number and any whole number.
Let's underline that because that's really important. Actually, let's put it in a box. Remember, don't end your box at the end of the line because it's not the end of the sentence. So leave one side of your box open. A multiple of a number is the product of that number and any whole number. That's something that we need to know. Remember, it's different from a factor. Factors are the pieces that make up the product. Multiples are the product. Keep going, Smith. Make sure you keep following along. Use your finger to follow along. Mason, we do a lot of using our finger to follow along. That way you know exactly where you are and I know that you're following along. Okay, go ahead.
Any number that is divisible by 10 is a multiple of 10. You can use multiples and number patterns to multiply.
So divisible by 10 means that if you can take a number, divide it by 10, and get a whole number, it's divisible by 10. To know if a number is divisible by 10, think of that, is it a factor sheet? Factors of 10 always have what? Ethan, turn around. No, put it away. Put it away. Multiples of 10 always have what at the end? 10 is always a factor if the number has what at the end? Carla?
A 0.
A 0. If a number has 0 at the end, then 10 is a factor. Please stop trying to break the pencil and put it in your desk. Put it on your desk. Scoot your chair. Put it on your desk, out of your hands. And please follow along. So if a number ends with, if the last digit is 0, that means 10 is a factor, no matter what the number is. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, everyone, finger or pencil? Whoops. Sorry. On example 1. Everybody, finger or pencil on example 1. When I see everybody's finger or pencil on example 1, I will continue. Okay, read example 1 in your head while I read it out loud. The whale shark is the world's largest fish. Its mouth is 5 feet long, and each foot contains 600 teeth. How many teeth does a whale shark have? Well, first, anytime we have word problems, first thing we do is what? Victoria. We underline the question. So Mason, make sure anything I write on the board, you write on your paper, unless I say, don't write this. But if I don't say anything, that means write it. So first we're going to underline the question. How many teeth does a whale shark have? Now what's the second thing we do anytime we have a word problem? Zari.
Read it again and find the important information.
Well, how do we know what our important information is? What do we have to look for before we go back and read? Cullen?
The answer unit.
The answer unit. Where do we find the answer unit?
After how many?
After how many. So we're going to look at how many or how much more or whatever. And we're going to look for the word that comes next. In this case, it's teeth. So we're going to underline teeth. Again, make sure that you can tell you have two different underlines. And we're going to label it with AU for answer unit. So we know our answer is going to be blank teeth. So we know that's at least one number in our problem, is a number of teeth. But now we need to figure out what operation to do. What are we looking for to figure out what operation we're doing? Zadie? Each or times as many, times more, or it could be what is the difference, or all together. In this case, if we look at our question, we don't have each or times as many. Does that mean we're not multiplying or dividing? Where do we need to look if we don't see each or times as many in our question? Carla?
In the sentence where it tells you the information.
We need to look at the rest of the problem. So let's look really quick. Do we see each or times as many? I see each. If I see each, that means I am multiplying or dividing. I don't know yet. Because now, if I have each, that means how many units am I going to have? At least how many units am I going to have in my problem if I see each? If I see each in my problem, how many units at least am I going to have? Aaron? At least 2. Where do I look for the other unit? Once I know I have each or times as many, where do I look for the other unit? After each. After each, I have the word foot. So I'm going to underline foot, and I'm going to label it OU for other unit. That means when I go back and reread, I need to find a number of teeth and a number of feet. I know those are my numbers. Once I figure out what those numbers are, then I can figure out, okay, am I multiplying or am I dividing? So let's go back through and read, find a number for teeth, and find a number for foot or feet. The whale shark is the world's largest fish. Do I need to know that information to solve this problem? Zadie?
No.
No, it's just extra information. I don't need to know it to solve this problem. So let's go to the next sentence. Its mouth is 5 feet long, and each foot contains 600 teeth. Well, I see both of my units. I see 5 feet, so I'm going to put that in a box. And I see 600 teeth. So that means there are 5 feet. Each foot has 600 teeth. So now we need to think. I know my answer is going to be teeth. If each foot has 600 teeth and there are 5 feet, am I going to end up with more than 600 teeth or less than 600 teeth? If I know that there are 5 feet and each of those feet has 600 teeth, am I going to end up with a smaller or larger number than 600 teeth? Aaron? Larger. Which operation gives me a larger number, multiplication or division? Carla?
Multiplying.
Multiplication. So I know I'm taking 5 feet and 600 teeth, and I'm multiplying. So I know I have to do 5 times 600. Now, do I know how to do that yet? Do I know how to set it up and down, and do this yet? Zadie?
No.
No. But what can I use to solve? I can use basic facts and patterns, just like we did this morning. Basic facts and patterns. I pull out the basic fact, solve that, count how many zeros are at the end of my factors, not inside my factors, but at the end, and just put them at the end. So, I know 600 is a multiple of 10 because it has what? How do I know that 600 is a multiple of 10? How do I know that 10 is a factor of 600? Carla?
It has a 0.
It has a 0 at the end. That's all I need to know. Anything that has a 0 at the end is a multiple of 10. Anytime we multiply by 10, we take the number, multiply it by 1, put zeros at the end. So let's look. 5 times 6 is what, class?
30.
30. 5 times 6 is 30. If I take 5 ones and I repeat them 6 times, I have 30. Now, 5 times 60. What's my basic fact? What is my basic fact in 5 times 60? Smith.
5 times 6.
5 times 6, which equals what? Smith?
30.
30. Now I need to figure out, okay, how many zeros do I have at the end of my factors? Not inside my factors, but at the end. Smith?
1.
So what do I do with it? Don't tell me add it. Do I forget about it just because there's already a 0 here?
No.
No. So what do I do with it? Think of the pattern that we followed earlier this morning. What do I
Move
do?
it over to the end of the product.
Good. I've got the answer to my basic fact, which is 30. I take that 0 at the end of my factors and I move it to the end of my product. So 5 times 60 is what, Smith?
300.
300. Now let's look at 5 times 600. That's the problem we're trying to solve. So first, what's the basic fact? Michaela? 5 times 6. What is 5 times 6? 30. Now I need to go back to my factors and do what? So I count how many zeros are at the end of my factors, and then I move them to where in the product? Right here? At the beginning? In the middle? The end. So I have 1, 2 zeros. I'm going to move them to the end of my product. I have 4 digits, so what do I need to do before I say what the answer is? Put in my comma, every 3 digits, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, and done. 5 times 600 is what, Michaela? 3,000. So a whale shark has, Mason? 3,000 teeth. Ooh, Mason, first day, and you are already remembering your unit. Because anytime you do a word problem, your answer must have an equation, the answer, and the unit. The answer unit. The easy way to find the answer unit is to look at what number, or what word, comes after how many, how much more, whatever. So, a whale shark has 3,000 teeth because 5 feet times 600 teeth equals 3,000 teeth. Everybody with me so far? Do you see how math is all a pattern? Once you realize that math is all patterns and you figure out what that pattern is, you can find the answers like that. You just have to find the pattern, but there's almost, not always, but there's almost always a pattern to whatever you're working on in math. Today, it's basic facts. Count how many zeros are at the end of the factors. Move them to the end of the product. So let's look at example 2. It says find 3 times 7,000. Do we have a real world problem here? You can show me. No. So do we need to go through and find all the important information? Nope. We just know we're doing 5 times 3,000. So let's use our basic facts and patterns. Well, 3 times 7,000, what's the basic fact? Cullen.
3 times 7.
3 times 7 equals?
21.
21. 3 times 7 ones equals 21 ones, which is 21. Now, next, if we add one zero, if we put 1 0 at the end of one of our factors, we have 3 times 70. What's the basic fact? Michaela? Well, let's go in order. Let's follow the same order that they told us. Even though 7 times 3 will give us the same answer, let's make sure that we're following the same order that they give us. We always solve from left to right. So what's the basic fact? 3 times 7, which equals 21. Now we need to, well, first we have to do what? Before we can move it, we have to count them. So we have to count the zeros. How many zeros do we have? 1. What do we do with that 1 0? Move it to the end of our product, which means 3 times 70 is 21. 3 times 70 is 21. Zadie?
210.
210. Remember, we moved that 0, Michaela, so it's not 21 anymore. It's 210. 3 times 7 is 21, so there's no way possible that 3 times 70 can be 21. Because 3 times 7 means we repeat 7 3 times. 3 times 70 means that we repeat 70 3 times. Can 7 plus 7 plus 7 be the same as 70 plus 70 plus 70? No. If I was giving you 3 times 7 money, dollars, or 3 times $70, and you said, oh, 3 times 70 is 21, and you said, well, I'll just take this one, you'd be missing out on a lot of money, right? So you have to make sure that you're paying attention to what you are doing. Okay, 3 times 700. What's the basic fact in 3 times 700? Victoria. What's the basic fact?
210.
What's the basic fact in 3 times 700? Kingston. 3 times 7. Basic fact means a multiplication problem, not an answer. 3 times 7 is what, Kingston? 21. Next step is to, can we move them if we don't know how many there are? So what's our next step? It's not to move them yet, it's to count. How many zeros do we have at the end of our factors? 2. 1, 2. So that means, what do I do with those 2 zeros? We move them where in the product? Beginning, middle, end. So I move my 2 zeros to the end. I have a 4-digit number, so what do I need to do before I move on? If I have a 4-digit or more number, what do I have to have in that number? So I have to count 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, don't need any more, because remember, Mason, a comma goes every 3 digits. So you start at the end of the number, you count 3 digits, you put a comma until you don't have 3 digits. Okay, so that means 3 times 700 is what, Kingston?
2,100.
Say that again, louder.
2,100.
2,100. Good. It sounded like you said 10,100, so make sure you're being loud. Okay, Okay, last part. Now we're going to be able to find the answer. 3 times 7,000. What's the basic fact? Zari.
3 times 7.
3 times 7. 3 times 7 is what?
21.
21. Next step is to do what?
Move the zeros.
Can I
over
move
to
them
the
if I don't know how many there are?
No.
So what's the next step? It's not to move them. First I have to can't hear you. You turned your
Count
microphone
the
off.
zeros.
Count the zeros. 1, 2, 3. How many zeros do I put at the end of my product?
3 zeros.
3 zeros. I have a 5-digit number. So what do I need to do before I move on?
You broke up. I couldn't hear you.
I have 5 digits. So what do I need to do before I move on?
Add the comma.
I need to place the comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. 1, 2. Don't need another one. So 3 times 7,000 is?
21,000.
So that means the answer to our equation, 3 times 7,000 is 21,000. We can notice that the product is 3 times 7 with 1, 2, 3 zeros at the end. So is everybody with me? Here are the steps. Step 1, everybody make sure you're listening closely. Step 1, find the basic fact. Step 2, you know what? You have room, so let's write these steps. You have room here. We're going to write the steps. Make sure that you are writing neatly, small enough so that you can fit it all, large enough so you can read it. Please make sure you're writing it neatly, because if you're writing it really, really messy and then you can't read it later, is that going to help you? If you're writing it really, really messy and it's hard to read, you can read it, but it's hard to read, are you going to use it, or are you just going to be like, that's too hard to read, I don't feel like figuring out what I wrote? Zadie?
You're gonna be like, I don't want to read this.
Exactly. You're going to be like, I can't read that easily, so I'm just going to ignore it. So make sure you're writing neatly. So, step 1. Make sure you're writing this in your math book. You do have room. Find the basic fact. There's step 1. Step 2. Solve the basic fact. So step 1, find the basic fact. Step 2, solve the basic fact. Step 3, count the zeros at the end. Make sure you underline end, because you're not counting zeros in the middle of factors, only the ones that are at the end. Count the zeros at the end of the factors. So step 3 is count the zeros at the end of the factors. And then last step, step 4, move the zeros to the end, underline end, of the product. So, when you are solving multiplication problems that have multiples of 10, step 1, find the basic fact. Step 2, solve the basic fact. Step 3, count the zeros at the end of the factors. Then step 4, move the zeros to the end of the product. Is everybody with me? Okay. Finish writing those steps. 198. Put your finger on the first word of the sentence at the top so that I know that you're ready to follow along. Smith, can you tilt your camera down a little bit? Just a little. There you go. Aaron, please read the sentence at the top of the page. Everybody use your finger to follow along. Louder.
When you know basic facts and number patterns, you can multiply mentally.
Good. When you know basic facts, that means you need to know your what? Cullen?
Basic facts.
Basic facts. Some of you are there. Some of you need to keep practicing. Some of you need to actually practice. Because it should not be taking this long if you are actually practicing your facts and memorizing them. You need to be memorizing them, so you should not have to look at the answer every time you practice. You should be able to know, okay, that's it, and move on. Okay, so everybody, so once you know your basic facts and you know these patterns, well then that helps you to multiply in your head. Are you always going to have a pen and pencil or paper near you or a calculator to solve math problems in your life? No. And we have real world math problems all the time. You may not have access to a calculator or pencil and paper. So knowing your basic facts and number patterns like this pattern right here can help you to do this math in your head. So everybody, finger or pencil on example 3. Finger or pencil on example 3. When I see everybody's finger or pencil on example 3, we will continue. If your pencil is on example 3, then your hand needs to be on your pencil. Your pencil can't just be laying on it because that doesn't mean that you're ready. Okay, read in your head while I read out loud. The weight of a fire truck is 8 times 4,000 pounds. What is its weight in pounds? Okay, well this is a real world problem, but we really don't have to find any important information. Because the question, what is its weight in pounds, is already telling us the answer unit. Oops, I forgot we underline it. Sorry, don't circle it because I forgot we changed it to an extra underline. And then we're going to label it answer unit, AU. I'm not circling the units anymore because we need to save the circling for the words that tell us what operation to do. Then, do I have another unit in this problem? Do I have the word each? Do I have the words times as many or times more? You can show me. No, I don't have any of that. But do I need to sit here and figure out, oh my gosh, well then what's my equation? What's my operation? No, because right here it tells us 8 times 4,000 pounds. That means what we're doing is 8 times 4,000. What is the weight in pounds? Means the answer will be blank pounds. Okay, oh, we're going to use a variable. Let W represent the weight. So our equation looks like W equals 8 times 4,000. Just because W equals is at the beginning, does that mean that this problem is any different than this one? Is this any different than this? Carla?
No.
No. Don't let the answer variable and equals being at the beginning confuse you. It still means the same exact thing. It still means exactly the same thing. W equals 8 times 4,000 means exactly the same thing as 8 times 4,000 equals W. You don't need water right now. You can wait. you need to find 8 times 4,000. Whether it's W equals 8 times 4,000 or 8 times 4,000 equals W, we're still finding 8 times 4,000. So step 1, find the basic fact. Zadie, what's the basic fact in 8 times 4,000?
8 times 4.
Which equals? So then step 2, solve the basic fact. 8 times 4? Cullen.
32.
32. Come on, guys. You need to be studying. Now, step 3. Count the zeros at the end of the factor. Zadie, do we have any zeros at the end?
No.
So do we need to do step 3?
No.
If we don't need to do step 3, do we need to do step 4?
No.
Nope, so we'll just move on. Okay, 8 times 40. Michaela, step 1. What's step 1?
Count the zeros.
Is step 1, count the zeros.
Find
Find
the basic
the basic fact. What is the basic fact?
8 times 4.
Step 2 is to do what?
Solve the basic fact.
8 times 4 equals 32. Step 3,
Count the zeros.
how many zeros do we have at the end of our factors? 1. Step 4,
Solve. 9.
what is step 4? If you need to go back, you can.
Move the zeros to the end.
Move the zeros to the end. How many zeros am I moving? 1, it's going at the end. So that means 8 times 40 is, louder, 320. Okay, 8 times, oh, I forgot. We don't really need to do this. I'll go through it, I'll explain it after, and you just need to listen. Okay, next, 8 times 400. Ethan, step 1. What's the basic fact? Louder. Is that the basic fact? Is the basic multiplication fact an answer? A basic fact is an equation. So what is the basic fact in 8 times 400, Ethan? You need to pay attention because we've done this, so it's just a pattern. We're doing the same thing every time. Carla, step 1. We're doing 8 times 400. What's step 1? Ethan, make sure you're listening.
Step 1 is to find the basic fact.
What is the basic fact in 8 times 400?
8 times 4.
8 times 4. So Ethan, do you see what we mean when we say find the basic fact? We're finding the multiplication basic fact. Well, Carla told us it's 8 times 4. What is 8 times 4, Carla?
8 times 4 equals 32.
32. Very good. Now step 3.
Step 3 is to count the zero at the end of the factor.
How many zeros are there at the end of the factors?
There are 2 zeros.
1, 2. So step 4.
Step 4 is to move the 0 to the end of the product.
So we're moving 2 zeros to the end of the product. How many digits do we have, Carla?
We have 4 digits.
So what do we need to do before we move on?
Comma.
We need to put in the comma. 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, no comma. So 8 times 400 is what, Carla?
3,200.
Very good. Okay, now 8 times 4,000. It's our last one. That will help. That will make us solve this equation. Zari, step 1.
Find the basic facts.
What's the basic fact?
8 times 4.
8 times 4. Step 2.
Step 2. Solve the basic fact.
8 times 4 is what, Zari?
32.
Carla, I think you're not muted. Make sure you're muted. Now, step 3, Zari.
Count the zeros. Count the zeros at the ends of the factor.
How many zeros do we have at the end of the factors?
3.
1, 2, 3. Step 4.
Move the zeros to the end of the product.
So I need to put 1, 2, 3 zeros. How many digits do I have, Zari?
5.
So what do I need to do before I move on?
Start at the end and count 3 and then pick the comma.
Good. 1, 2, 3, comma. 1, 2. Don't need a comma. So 8 times 4,000 is what, Zari?
32,000.
Good. Now let's look at this sentence. Notice that this product right here, go ahead and draw that arrow to show that you're talking about this product, is 8 times 4 with blank zeros at the end. 8 times 4,000 is the product of 8 times 4, 32, with how many zeros at the end? Smith?
3 zeros.
3 zeros at the end. Since 8 times 4,000 is 32,000, then W equals what? Since 8 times 4,000 is 32,000, W equals what, Cullen?
W equals 32,000.
W equals 32,000. Since 8 times 4,000 is 32,000, that means W equals 32,000. So the weight of the fire truck is, Aaron,
32,000.
louder,
32,000 pounds.
32,000 pounds. Everybody with me? Okay. Let's go ahead. We're not going to have time. Oh, wait. We do need to get to the guided practice. I'm sorry. I hope you're not working ahead. So, okay, everybody, look at the guided practice. Ethan, scoot your chair. The directions say multiply. Use basic facts and patterns. Number 1, we have 6 times 8 equals 48. There's our basic fact. We know 6 times 8 is a basic fact. It equals 48. So let's use that to solve our problems. First, we have 6 times 80. Well, step 1, find the basic fact. Step 1 is to find the basic fact. Michaela, 6 times 80, what's the basic fact? 6 times 8 equals, that step 2 is solve it. 6 times 8 is what? 48. Step 3 is, how many zeros do we have at the end of our factors? What do we do with that 1 0? Where? So that means 6 times 80 is, now 6 times 800. Well, step 1 is to, which is? Step 2?
Solve the basic fact.
6 times 8 is? Step 3?
Count the zeros.
How many zeros do we have at the end of our factors?
2.
So step 4?
Move the zeros to the end.
I have 2 zeros. I'm moving them to the end. I have 4 digits, so I need to place my comma. 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, no comma. Excuse me. So 6 times 800 is?
4,800.
4,800. Now 6 times 8,000. They already did it for us. What's step 1?
Find the basic fact.
Which is?
8 times 6.
Remember, go in order.
6 times 8.
6 times 8. Step 2?
Solve the basic fact.
6 times 8 is?
48.
Step 3?
Count the zeros.
How many zeros do we have at the end of our factor?
3.
So we put 3 at the end. 1, 2, 3. That means 6 times 8,000 is?
48,000.
48,000. Very good. Now that wasn't super helpful because they gave us most of the answers. I really like this math book except for sometimes. Okay, number 2. We start with our basic facts. 7 times 9, which equals what, Aaron?
63.
Now we have 7 times 90. Step 1, find the basic fact.
7 times 100.
Step 2, solve the basic fact. 63. Step 3, count the zeros.
1.
Step 4, move the zeros to the end of the product. So our answer is
630.
630. Now, 7 times 900. Step 1, find the basic fact.
7 times 9.
Which step 2, solve.
63.
Step 3, count the zeros at the end of the factors.
2.
Step 4, move them to the end of our number. Unwritten step 5, check for commas. Do we need a comma here? Where does the comma go?
Every 3.
So specifically in this answer, where does the comma go? Between the,
Between the 6.
good. So that means our answer is,
6,000.
very good. Now 7 times 9,000, step 1.
7 times 9.
So we,
We find the basic fact.
which is,
7 times 9.
which, step 2?
Count the 0.
Are we going to count the zeros before we just found the basic fact, so what's the next step?
Count the basic.
Remember, you can go back and look at your steps. Don't try to do it without them. So step 2 is to solve the basic fact. 7 times 9 is
63.
step 3.
Count the zeros.
How many zeros do I have? Step 4.
Move the zeros to the end of the product.
So I take my 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. Move them to the end of my product. My unwritten step 5 is to find where the
Comma
commas
step.
go. We know they go every 3 digits, so where are the commas going to go here in this number?
Between 3 and 0.
Between the 3 and 0. So 7 times 9,000 is
63,000.
63,000. Okay, for numbers 3 and 4, we have to multiply using mental math, which means we're just going to follow the steps. Make sure that you are going back and looking at the steps if you need to. It's just for the test where you need to memorize the steps. Up until the test, you don't need to memorize the steps. It will be helpful, and the more you practice with them, the more you'll just remember them without even thinking, I'm sitting here memorizing them. But you don't need to memorize them. You can always go back and look up until the day of the test. Don't just try to remember them off the top of your head, because what if you remember them wrong? And you keep practicing using the wrong steps. What's going to happen when you get to the test? Zadie?
You're going to lose points for doing the steps in the wrong order or just doing them wrong.
Exactly. You're going to miss out. You're going to miss the answers because you learned the steps wrong because you wouldn't go back and check. So then when you do it on the test, you're going to do the steps wrong, which is going to lead to a wrong answer. So we're going to multiply. We're going to use mental math. Number 3, 8 times 600. Well, Carla, we just need to follow our steps. Step 1,
Step 1 is to
you can just tell me what it is. It's find the basic fact. What's the basic fact?
the basic fact is 6 times 8.
Make sure that you're going in the order that they give it to us. Don't go backwards. We read from left to right, so we're not going to say 6 times 8. We're going to say what, Carla?
8 times 6.
8 times 6 is what?
48.
48. There's step 2. Step 3. Count the zeros at the end of the factors. How many zeros do we have?
2.
2. So step 4.
Step 4 is to put the zeros at the end of the answer.
Good. 1, 2. My unwritten step 5 is to look for where to put what?
The comma.
I know I put it every 3 digits, so where's my comma going to go in this number?
Between 4 and 8.
So that means 8 times 600 is?
It is 4,800.
Very good. Number 4, 9 times 9,000. Smith, are you good? Is it working better now? Awesome. So Smith, we have 9 times 9,000. Step 1.
Find the basic fact.
The basic fact in this problem is
9 times 9.
step 2.
Solve the basic fact.
9 times 9 is
81.
very good. Step 3.
Count the zeros at the end of the number.
At the end of the factors, which is how many zeros do we have at the end of the factors?
3 zeros.
So step 4 is to
Move the zeros over to the product.
good, nice catch. Move the zeros to the end of the product. Now the unwritten step 5.
Place the comma every 3 digits.
So where does our comma go in this number?
Between 1 and 0.
Good. So our answer is
81,000.
very good. Okay, we have like 1 minute before we need to start Wonder. So let's look, everybody pencil down and follow along as I give you the instructions on how to do independent practice and your homework. Mason, a lot of times we run out of time to do independent practice during our math class, but luckily our specials are shorter this year, so that means when you come back from Spanish today, you'll have time, bless you, to work on independent practice. But let's look through so we can look at the instructions. The instructions for numbers 5 through 10, you're doing exactly this. They just don't give you the answer to this first basic fact. Numbers 11 through 16, you're doing exactly this. When you are doing your basic facts, some of you have memorized the wrong answers to your basic facts. You are allowed to check them using tools that you have. You are allowed to check that you have the correct answer to the basic fact using tools that you have. But you need to get to the point where you don't need that tool anymore before we get to the test. Okay, numbers 17 through 21. Through 21. You're using mental math to find the unknown number. So sometimes the unknown is the answer. Sometimes the unknown is one of the factors. So you just need, if it's one of the factors, you just need to work backwards and you can use basic related facts. Okay, so if you know 6 times blank equals 48,000, well, you know the first digit has to be 8 because 6 times 8 equals 48. And then just count how many zeros, and that's how many zeros go at the end. Does everybody understand that? Okay, look at page 200. Oh my gosh, we're already on page 200. We have word problems, so what does that mean you need on the line? Mason, pay close attention to this because this might be new from last year or any other year, and this might be different than how your school was doing it. At least 3 things do you need on the line? Michaela, what's the first thing? The equation. So you have to look in the word problem and figure out the equation. That's where using those tools like underlining the question, underlining the, and labeling the units, and then putting a box around important information will help you. So you need first the equation. What's the second thing you need on the line? Cullen.
The answer.
The answer. And what is the third thing that you need on the line, Kingston? We're going in order anyway. So you need the equation. Michaela told us you need the equation. Cullen told us you need the answer. The last thing you need, Carla, is the
Unit.
The answer unit. Make sure you're picking the correct answer unit because once we get to chapter 5, I'll count off half a point for the wrong unit. I'll count off a whole point for no unit. Does everybody understand? Sometimes you also need what? Occasionally, if the directions or the problem tells you, you might also need what, Zari?
A variable.
A variable, which is that unknown, like in example 3, where you might need a variable, a letter, to stand for an unknown. If it doesn't ask you for that, do you need it? No. Okay, remember, number 26 and 27 are those critical thinking. 26 is critical thinking using numbers. 27 is critical thinking using words. So make sure that you fully solve those problems. Let's look at the homework really quick. Numbers 1 through 4 are exactly like number 1 and 2 on the guided practice. Numbers 5 through 8 are exactly like numbers 3 and 4 on the guided practice. Numbers 9 through 12 are exactly like numbers, or similar to numbers 17 through 20 on the homework, on the independent practice. It just doesn't tell you what the answer to the basic fact is. You have to solve. You have to figure out what the basic fact is. Numbers 13 through 16 are word problems, just like the independent practice. So again, you need equation, answer unit. And then number 17 is it's just a multiple choice question. Make sure that you show work if it requires work. Okay, close your math books. Put them away.